Hello and welcome to the 25th International Gov Design Community Call. So hello, that's from Paloma and from me. Paloma, do you quickly want to say who you are and what you do?
Yeah, hi everybody, nice to meet you all. I'm Paloma, I'm a senior user researcher. I work at Government Digital Service in our international team. So currently I'm sitting in a hotel room in Cyprus, we're working with the Cypriot government on a project which is really exciting and just launching at the moment for new services. So that's really great and really nice to meet you all. Look forward to more events in the future.
Excellent, that's fantastic. So, and hello, I'm Martin Jordan, Head of Service Design here at the UK Government's Cabinet Office and currently located in the Central Digital and Data Office. So yes, and the two of us are leading this community on, or Kara Kane has left us now, and she's still kind of like in spirit with us, and I keep chatting with her about things. She's still kind of like in spirit with us. So just a few notes, community notes from us. So while we understand, of course, that it's a difficult time for many of us, we haven't been commenting much on international conflicts that happened in the past. But we just want to state that our international design and government community subscribes to the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, subscribes to freedom, equality, and dignity. And I was just on Sunday again, like opening up that really important document from 1948 and listening to Max Richter's composition and that around that, again, the spoken words. So I think it's a really good document, and maybe we hear as well in the near future more about like some United Nations projects in any case, but just want to make this short comment on the current situation and our view from a community perspective. So on other community matters, our international design and government community just turned 5. So half a decade, that feels quite like an achievement. And the community now, as you can see the little counter on Slack, is more than 2,500 people strong, representing over 70 countries. And in the last few weeks, we had quite a few more people joining us after some tweets and a blog post. So indeed, it took us a little while, but we managed to write a birthday update, which you can find on the Design and Government blog of the UK government. We'll drop the link in the comments or the comment section in a second. So in the blog post, we recap a bit what happened in the last 2.5 years, and we also give a bit of an outlook of what's to come. So do have a read, leave a comment, and let us know what you think, because, well, it's our community. We are all able to shape it, and we should do so. So one of the things that's happening in the next few months is we'll have another webinar. So we had 2 webinars last year, and it's going to be organized by, well, community members from different countries, including Norway, the Netherlands, and Argentina. And this time it will be around the UN Sustainability Development Goals, sustainable consumptions and production. And yeah, there will be soon a way to subscribe. And you can also find, that's linked as well in the blog post, you can also find the previous recordings of the other 2 webinars on ethics and design and other topics. And in the last few weeks, Paloma and I, we sat down and looked at potential topics, looking at online discourses, looking at international government blogs. So we created a bit of a short list of potential topics, but essentially it's really up to you, and help us decide like what is more important. So we should be posting these topics on the Slack channel, and you can prioritize and help us vote and propose as well like other topic ideas. This is just kind of like a little short list of things that might be interesting. And this is kind of like enough when it comes to community updates. We'll be diving now into the topic of today, and that is maturing and scaling up design. And today we hear from 2 countries, and very happy to have Marine here as the Chief of Design of the Digital Public Services team in the Inter-ministerial Direction of Digital Affairs. That's a bit of a mouthful, but I'm very, very interested and very curious to hear what you're gonna tell us about how you've been growing and maturing design. And then afterwards, we hear from the Department for Digital Transformation from Italy. So we hear from Claudia, Mauro, and Marco, who are service designers or respectively head of design there. So we'll be collecting the questions for after. So we have a presentation part first, and then throughout, whenever you hear something interesting, just drop your questions directly in the comments section, and then there's a respective speakers will be picking them up and addressing them. Okay, I'll be muting some people again, if you don't mind. Yep. That is probably a setting that was somewhere else. We should have ticked. But Marine, can I hand over to you first?
Sure, nice to meet you all. Let me see if I can share. Yes, I can. Okay, great. I'm going to share a few slides today. Up. Does it work?
This looks like an inbox or something, or some other interface.
Probably not the right one, so strange. Okay.
No worries.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna try that again. Let me double check. Okay, yeah. Is that better?
Yes, this looks like a slide deck. Yes,
well, nice to meet you all. Thank you. So let me just check on time. So it's 5:11, 15 minutes, and then we can open to questions or move on to the next person. So I'm not gonna, so hi everyone. I can't access the chat, so if there are questions, maybe I'll look at them after. So today I'm gonna present you a portion of what we do in France. Part of what we do. So I manage a team that's called, so everything is translated in English, so it's not really the right names, but we try to make it up so it made some sense to you. So I manage a team that's called the Digital Public Services Design Team. It's within what could be called the Digital Transformation Department within the French public administration. Quickly, the Digital Transformation Department, which is called DINUM, in French, Direction Inter-ministerial du Numérique, does a lot of different things. It produces services that are directed to the citizen. So, for instance, France Connect is one of them. It produced in the past services for professional businesses during COVID, for instance, such as the financial aids dashboard, and I can share afterwards the presentation so you can access all those links. It also produces services for public agents and civil servants, such as the chat, which is the internal messenger for civil servants. So the Digital Transformation Department really accompanies the digital transformation of all the ministries within France, and so acts on a lot of different things. Services for citizens, services for professional and businesses, services for civil servants, but also it accompanies and advises all other ministers which are responsible for their public services to help improve them, to help connect to the right APIs, to simplify and improve digital public services. So within that big organization or department, within that department, actually I say a big department, but it's mostly around, it's about 150 people. We have a team called the Digital Public Services Design Team. It's composed of diverse, very diverse people with different backgrounds, domain experts around design, accessibility, digital accessibility, as well as user research. We also have a jurist, a law expert in our team, and we have also more polyvalent people who are competent on various domains. And I'm really sorry because I actually used to live in the US, and I don't get to practice my English anymore, and it's really it makes me want to cry to hear how I'm speaking to you today. So this is a team that's quite diverse with different competencies within it. So what do we do within that design team? And again, before I go into what we do, there are a lot of other things that are done within the French administration around design. For instance, you've probably seen that one of the team within the administration, the information service team, produced the design system, the French design system, which is publicly available, and I invite you to take a look at it. It's really, really well done. It's accessible by design, and it's slowly being spread or deployed onto all the digital public services as we speak. There's also a lot of work that's being done within each ministries, every ministries and their administration. Some teams, for instance, put together accessibility and design teams to help improve in those areas. And so anyway, so there's a lot of things that are done, but I'm just going to do one line of what we do, and we can talk later. So within our team, what do we do? First, our first mission is to analyze and objectively evaluate the quality of digital public services. And now this is kind of a summary, and we'll go into details right after. So in order to do that, to analyze the quality of services, we have launched in 2019 what we call the Observatory of the Quality of Digital Public Services. Our second mission is to help public administration improve the most used online services, the most volumetric services. And what we do for that is we've deployed what we call commando UX or UX commandos and domain experts. And I'll go more into details on that. We also try to spread a design culture and encourage human-centered methods. And we do that how? By producing training, workshops, publications, online tools, and also we try to produce some things on social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, and now also Instagram, which allows us for a different type of more creative formats. And finally, we also are responsible for maintaining the French accessibility standards, the RGAA, which you might know, and we can talk about that a little bit later. I won't go into that part as much today, because otherwise I think we'll run very, very short on time, but we can talk about it after. So in 2017, our president said we needed to make all digital public services accessible online, meaning I'm at home and I must be able to do to ask for something online from my home. And so we responded by saying, well, okay, it's one thing to digitalize all public services. It's another thing for everyone to actually be able to use the services. So in order to evaluate objectively the quality of the services and the ease of access of those digital public services, we put together in 2019 this tool. It's public, accessible. It contains, well, it regroups, 250 public services that we analyze every trimester on 8 criteria. We just last Friday published the 11th edition of this observatory. And so I'll go quickly into some of those criteria that we think are important to evaluate the quality of a public service. The first one is the service available online? The second one is, how happy are users with this service? And how easy it is to use. So in order to calculate this one, we actually oppose at the end of every public service a button that's called I give my feedback button that allows us on one side to quantify the quality, the satisfaction of citizen, but also to give a tool to administration to improve day by day their services. And for instance, in December, we saw on a service that it was diving, not going in the right direction in terms of satisfaction, and we were able to immediately warn the team. And since then, they went back to 8.2 out of 10 grade on their service. We also have other indicators, such as, is the service accessible on mobile? Is it easy to contact a human person if I'm encountering a problem while doing the service? What does the speed of the page look like? And as we know that the connectivity is not the same for everyone and every device, we want to ensure that's as fast as possible. Does it use the France Connect integration? Meaning, does it simplify the way we can connect to a service that's specific to citizen services? Does it take into consideration accessibility standards? And finally, what we call the dites-le nous une fois, which is, does it use the right APIs in order to not ask 1,000 times the same information to users? So for instance, if I'm using France Connect, well, you already have my first name and my last name. And so you probably should have asked me again those information. That's just an example, but also my revenue and other information are today widely available through those APIs. So this tool really allows us, as I said, to analyze, and that's our first step to notice or to witness with the ministries that, oh, there might be a problem on that service if the grade, the satisfaction grade is, for instance, 2 out of 10. And it gives us a reason to say, hey, we're happy, we're here, and we have we have the skills, we have the experts, and we'd love to help you if you allow us to, because it's not always the case. So what we put together is a team of experts who can, domain experts, who can help those administrations to improve those critical public services. Designers, accessibility developers, accessibility auditors, user researchers. One thing we're really trying to push is the user research, because it's the one thing that helps us show by A plus B that a service can be problematic, complex to a user. Doing a usability test is just the quickest way to do that. And so we have 2 modes of intervention. Sometimes those experts will be deployed for a period of 4 to 10 months within a public administration, or sometimes, and that's the team that you see here below, will help them on smaller intervention, small user research work, or maybe we'll do a quick, feedback on the UX flow. So yeah, we offer some different types of services depending on the needs, of course, of the administration, and depending on the internal on the competencies they have internally. We also provide workshops and trainings, and I'll share some of the URLs later. But we do so it's in French, but we do open, well, actually, I think it's on the next slide, so I'm not going to extend on this. Yes, so we try to also spread the human-centered cultures and methods within the administrations. How do we do that? Is by providing training. So we have 2 types of trainings. One is what we call Amphi. It's open to all. with a live transcription. Also, it's important to say. So it takes work to put the event together, and it takes a team. And so we've so far provided those large trainings for around design, user research, accessibility, eco-conception, and we're going to continue to provide more of those. The idea is obviously to help people who are interested in learning new things, or maybe who are just curious and afraid to dive in, to learn new things, and then maybe get longer form trainings or train their teams. Also, we provide workshops for smaller groups, which allows people to get really into the needs of things. We do also things on social media, and we think that's actually also part of the strategy, part of spreading that culture, and giving like a lot of the time, what we hear is public administrations they feel lonely. They feel like they're trying to push for maybe user research, for recruiting a designer, and if someone else is not telling them it's okay to do so, like we give them the legitimacy to ask their boss or their surroundings to say, hey, actually, they say it's important to do that, so let's do that. And so I think it's also, that's why it's important to be present on those networks. And of course, we're working on a white paper that we think is coming out in spring 2022, that's the year, to present what we call a shared vision of good digital public services. I've been in the organization for about 3 years, and so the team has evolved, and we've met many different projects amongst so many different ministries, and we do see a lot of the time that it's the same things that come back over and over, and that prevents us from creating exemplary or producing exemplary digital public services. So we decided to put those together in a document, and maybe again it can help improve things from there. So what does it do? What does our work do? So just to give you an idea, in 2021, it's 75 digital public services that our experts helped. And we hope this year will be even more. We have KPIs, of course. One of them is the digital accessibility. And to give you an idea of what our work has done so far, but of course we have to do more every day. But in October 2020, it was also 11% of online services within those 250 critical services were accessible. Today, as of last Friday, it's 37 of the services that are accessible. And the goal by end of year 2022 is to make sure that 80% of those services will be accessible. Well, as you know, I'm sure you traverse the same issues with all the digital public services, and it's not easy always, but funny enough, what we found so far is that it was somehow easier to make progress on accessibility than it is on design, and that it's easier because maybe it's written in the law. Maybe people understand better what we mean by a service that's accessible. So right now we're kind of thinking about, well, how can we, how can we have more impact on the design side of things? And the pleasure I want to say that we can feel when we do when we use a service. Some of them are really violent, those public services, those digital public services. The language is hard to understand, so we're trying to deconstruct things and see how we can be more efficient on that matter, and we're not there yet at all, unfortunately. But things like a design system, of course, help standardize at least the flows, but the language, especially in France, is really a big thing. Well, and this is just resources, our website, accessibility and design tools, our social media stuff, and I think that's quite it. Yes, that's it. I don't know how we are on time. Sorry.
No, I think you're doing totally good regarding time. Thank you so much. And various people said that your English is just great. And I do agree. So yeah, that hasn't been fading away. So people might have questions and they're just possibly thinking about their questions. And why they do, I can just ask mine, if you don't mind. So how have you been prioritizing potentially the services that you have been supporting? Because you said you've been working with quite a number of services. Is it like services when it comes to a number of transactions, or is it kind of like people who are more engaged in any case, and it might be easier to work with them? So how do you prioritize kind of like your work and the services that you're supporting?
So at first, we prioritize based on the results of the observatory. That's your question, right? So when the services that had the least good grades on satisfaction, well, that was the services that we were going to. That was how we prioritize. Same thing with accessibility. We prioritize. Well, depends. Sometimes when we see that a service is probably most likely accessible, we urge them to do an audit so that we can actually witness that it's usable. So it depends, but mostly like what the observatory helps us do is have a clean dashboard of what's the actual and where we want to go to. And so it's just checking boxes and saying, okay, well, here they need help. But sometimes it's hard because we know that services need help, but they might not have a team in place that's maintaining the service, or they are doing their thing and they're afraid of letting us in. So a lot of our work also has been creating partnership and relationships and making sure they would trust us little by little, and having a very collegial approach, collaborative, yes. So we try to be nice, basically, and to make sure they have the best experience using our services. We apply those best practices also to the way we provide service as well.
I would have a follow-up question, but now there are quite a few ones. So let me start reading them out. So I think the first question comes from Marco. Do you have a centralized feedback system for all the public services? I think that's related to your little feedback tool that you're adding to the end of the service.
Actually, yes, and I'm gonna share the link right now. Yeah, actually we do. So, so I'm just coming back here, going to the chat. Yes, so we do, and so the button that we put at the end of each digital public services is part of a bigger initiative. So a user has a citizen has, or a professional using those services has many ways to share their feedback. First, they can use the button at the end of a service. They can also go to this URL that I shared below, and so then they can also contact directly the service using an email or to call them, and they can also, if they're physically somewhere doing that service, they can also talk to people in person.
Cool. That's impressive and great to hear. The next question comes from Deborah. Can you tell us a bit more about the struggles you've had with improving the focus on design? You mentioned you got more traction with accessibility.
I think with accessibility, because of referential, the RGAA, it's very easily, we can very easily say, well, today your service reaches 45% conformity to the RGA. We need you to get to 100%. It's clear what we're expecting from them. I think when it's harder, I think, for them. But I think that's something we have to look into more. And so I don't want to, but I think it's harder for people to understand design and the impact it has on people, and to understand that it's something that we need to invest on. To understand that, for instance, if a website, I mean, I know we are all, I think, designers in the room, but if you're arriving to a website and it's unclean, or it's not, nothing is clear, already it's gonna frustrate you. Already it's gonna put you in a state that's not well, and so you might do mistakes while you do your service. You might also get more frustrated if there's the least problem. So it's a global experience that has to be thought through. And it's hard to convey that to administration sometimes, but that's why we do those trainings. That's why we try to sensibilize them, but that's something for 2022 for us to crack. And I'd be happy to hear other things from others, how you're doing it also, of course.
Me too, absolutely. So I think overall the accessibility regulation in all of Europe, and especially in all parts of the European Union, plus the UK, because that became law in the UK as well before the UK left the European Union, like that is quite a strong vehicle, having that written into the law, and public sector organizations are kind of like forced to implement that. Maybe we do even a separate call on that, because I think we could dive more into that, because there has to be reporting also happening in all 27+1 countries. So I'd love to hear more about that actually as well. That would be fascinating, I think. There are plenty of questions. I'm going to go to the next one that comes from Ignacia, saying, amazing work. Question, how do you collect that data to measure the success of services? Ignacia, is that beyond the button that Marine already mentioned? Just to clarify your question, Ignacia.
Maybe what I can do, so, sorry.
It was because in the tool I was going around through the, I see there's like a different set of criteria, and then a yes or no, met or not. Yes. So yes, exactly. So I just wonder, like, the kind of, I don't know, the operation or the back end of this. Do you, like, how do you collect the different information for the different criteria? So well, quickly, I'm showing you quickly what it looks like, and this is all public information actually. Well, I have access here to a little bit more information. This is mostly what you'll see when you click on each of those. And so administrations also get access to the list, the verbatims, like, so I'm going to show you real quickly, but here you have a lot of comments. So here, 300 comments, and so they can use that. But yes, indeed. So if we go back to all the criteria, I can quickly show you how we get those indicators. So is it online? Is it not? That's us, our monitoring. The satisfaction, so it's our own tool in the backend that's calculating it. Is it compatible mobile? We do it also manually, meaning we test those services and we see, can I do the service on mobile? Is the support accessible? So we check if two means of human contacts are accessible quickly. Example, a phone number, example, an email or a form, okay? Disponibility and rapidity, we today use Pingdom. So basically we've all the URLs of those public services are entered in Pingdom. And so every 3 months we check and we grab that data. France Connect, we check that manually as well. Accessibility, we do that manually as well. And finally, what we call the dites-le-nous une fois, the use of APIs and the idea of not asking 1,000 times the same information. We also do that manually, and we have kind of a complicated way, a French way, I would say, to calculate this indicator, really thought by engineers, but no, I'm just joking. Yes, did I answer the question?
Ignacia, are you satisfied?
Okay.
Yes, thank you for showing that kind of more like deeper dive and detail into what you can see with the data. It's really useful, thank you.
Cool. Next question comes from Charlotte. Who is usually building the services that you support?
Yeah, so those services are built by the ministries themselves and their administrations, but sometimes we do chime in. So, well, actually, I'm going to talk about our direction in general. So sometimes we do the UX commando. So right now, for instance, we're hiring 2 developers who are going to work on a service for the Ministry of the Sea, and so in that instance, they're going to be building the service themselves, but that's actually rare in our case. Usually, we're more helping and not doing, but there are other teams within the DNUM. Within our bigger organization that actually do build services. So France Connect, I mentioned it. That's a public services that's internal to our department. But also there's the team at Beta, so the incubator that will on command of the ministries that will build small products, MVPs, minimal viable products, with, of course, the collaboration of the ministries. So there's various, there's also what we call maybe you've probably seen them before, the Entrepreneurs d'Intérêt Général, the EIG, the public interest entrepreneurs, which are hired by, recruited by us, but hired by the ministries and deployed within the ministries that will, they tend to focus on data development, but also design. And they'll be deployed within the ministries and develop also services. So we have different modes of intervention, but ministries are responsible for their public services, and we're here to help, is the summary of that.
Right. Yeah.
Good question. So I see, how do you select the démarche phare? What about the non-phare? That's a good question. Today, we only select 250 services. They're mostly the most volumetric, like highly used services in France by professional, by citizen. But we also wanted to make sure all the ministries were involved in that process. So, for instance, a ministry like the Ministry of Culture has very few digital public services. And so you'll see that today, the ones that are listed in the observatory are maybe they hit about 20,000 people a year, which is very low compared to all the other public services, which are way over 200,000 usage a year. In the future, it was a good place to start, 250, but maybe in the future we could have 500 services that we follow, maybe 2,000. Of course, ideally, all the services available would be easiest to use, accessible to all, most inclusive. But maybe we'd have to increase the size of the team in order to do 1,000.
I think there was another question. Let's take another couple of questions, and then I think we move on to the next presentation from Italy. There was one question from Tabea. You mentioned that it's not always possible to work together with services. How do you usually collaborate, and what is difficult?
I think, well, so we have different types of approach, but sometimes, you know, like when you have a rhythm within your team, like you don't necessarily want someone else to come in and disturb maybe your rhythm or your way of working. So it's totally understandable that some of the services, I mean, they have their culture, they feel that they're doing the best they can. And so, you know, that's, I feel very human and natural to feel that way. Again, what we try to do is with people who want to work with us, we work with them. We try to publish testimonies of the people, of their experiences with us. Sometimes what we've done also that's worked is if the service didn't really respond to the need to work with us, we would do an audit, a quick audit, afternoon audit of their services, UX audit, and we would put it together and present it to them to give them a free sample of, make them test what we could offer them if we were more involved on a longer period. So we try to incentivize them in various ways. 2 years ago, we also had open what we call the design bureaus, which were 2 hours a week. We would open our calendars, and people could just book us and come in for a question. And so we've actually during the COVID we've done those off, but I think we're probably gonna reopen those to try to address and create more demand for help in design.
Cool. Let's have a few more questions, but then we have to probably cut it there. From Matteo, you mentioned the importance of the language, and I've seen that you started providing info and French simplified also, for example, link. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Is there strategic investment you're putting into that?
Good question. So I wouldn't be able to say if, at a government level there's a investment. I mean, I think it's through the COVID period, everyone has been more sensibilized to the need for accessibility and accessibility of content, and that's helped us, do during live interventions of the president or the Ministry of Health to make sure we had a French Sign Language, live transcription, to make the information as easily accessible to everyone, especially that information that was critical to people's lives. So I think it's helped raise the awareness around that, and so they are indeed with documents. We've done some of that, but I would say today there's nothing that's been standardized in terms of requirements of, let's say, well, okay, we haven't stated that, for instance, for every digital public services there should be an alternative in French simplified. So that hasn't happened yet. I think it probably could happen in the future, but I don't have much visibility on that. Our first objective is really around and our focus and the focus of the government has been digital accessibility. And so we've put a lot of effort, a lot of investment in that. It's actually, we have a France Relance European, we've used some of the European fund, I can't remember what it's called. We've used $30 million to invest in accessibility. We've spent so far about 12 million. So accessibility and quality of services in general, but we've taken that very, very seriously.
Really impressive to see and to hear. Okay, one last. I think the question from Steve you have answered in some way already. So maybe let's take the one from Stefania. Do you consider measuring or tracking the compliance to the design system guidelines?
Interesting. So I'm not the one to answer that question because it's another team that's managing the design system. I'm not sure how they're planning on doing that, but so far what I've seen, the strategy has been incentivizing administration to use it, making sure it was as simple to use as possible, and they've done a really, really good job at that. It's helped improve the speed of producing digital public services, but also making sure they are accessible by design from the start. So I think, well, no, one thing that I can add to that is today, before publishing a new website, a new URL, the service of information of the government has to validate that and has to make sure the service is 75% conform to the RGAA And I'm guessing they also check the design system. So I guess there's a, but your question is retroactively, how do we measure that? I'm not sure, yeah.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you so much.
And I like Susie's comment.
Fantastic. So thank you so much for the presentation and answering all these questions. This is really great. And I think this is where we move over to give enough time and space as well for Claudia, Mauro, and Marco. Can I hand over to you?
Sure, I'll make a brief word of introduction. This is Marco. I'm currently the head of design for the digital transformation department. To give you more context in the presentation, I just want to say that it's not just us, because apparently the team surprised me, and I see Daniele, I see Stefania, I see Francesco. So most of my team is here, and I'm super happy to see that. And I'd like to thank for the invitation, first of all, and also to thank Marine. And I think that we'll have a lot of things to discuss afterwards as we are progressing towards the implementation of a series of different things. As you will see briefly in our presentation, the context, the context and the stakeholder and the ecosystem that we're living in, it's slightly different. But we started approaching the theme of measuring on a massively distributed system. So every learning on that side would be really precious. So Mauro, Stefania, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself while I'm preparing to share my screen. Sorry, Mauro, Claudia.
Yeah. Hi everyone. I'm Mauro, and I'm one of the service designers in our team. And actually, about the topic of today's meeting is perfect for us because we are actually growing. So we were 3 service designers during the last year, and now we are going to be probably 7 at the end of this year. So that's the best time for us to speak about that topic. So please, Claudia.
I think Claudia is not hearing us.
Absolutely.
She will jump in during the presentation if she sees fits, and for the team, feel free to jump in, of course. So a bit of context about us. So formally, the team that we are part of, it's within this box. It's a small department within the Ministry of Technological Innovation and Technological Transition. Now together with aerospace, just not to miss anything, within the Italian government. So the team is mainly responsible for the digitalization of public administration. And some of the consideration you're going to see during the presentation are specifically for Designers Italia, which is one of the many projects that the design team is doing. So as a general strategy, what we're trying to do is to work as much as possible with hybrid teams. So the designers are staffed within different projects in the domain of the department. Plus, we have our own project whose main focus is to diffuse the culture of design into the public administration. How we do it, it's going to be probably it's going to be unveiled during the presentation. So just to give you a sense of the problematic background. In Italy, we used to call it office center design, which I mean, you can imagine the citizen really as a postman, that it's jumping back and forth different offices and eventually maybe obtaining what he needs. And I mean, at its root, bureaucracy is really the Greek translation of powerful offices. That's what it is. So the long story short, this happens when process is its overarching meaning. So within the setting we found ourselves often working in, each local public authority expects citizens to fulfill their duties on proprietary platform. We are a country of fragmentation, and every local entity is responsible for delivering quite a number of different services. So you can see from this image how fragmented even just the informational layer is, and you can imagine the service layer behind that, how it would look like. So in 2017, where the digital transformation team was introduced, the focus was really to spread the message of user-centered design and to put back meaning for the citizen over process. So looking at a context where each local authority is offering citizen-tailored services, and to give the sign of this shake-up, what was implemented at the time, and it's still under development now and being expanded. It's the app EO, which works as a single point of contact for notification, payments, certificates, and all the subscription-based services. So that was really meant to hide the complexity of bureaucracy into a single point of contact, which was certainly relevant, and it's certainly needed to simplify the life of the end user. Still, when we look at the number, it's not completely working. It's not sufficient for having good services delivered. So we score quite around the average in the European Union for the digital service availability, the completeness, but the actual usage is much lower than that. So what we derive from it as a lesson learned as a design team is that the user-centered approach is necessary, but we cannot just simply hide the complexity in our case. So there is a whole network of stakeholders that is necessary to deliver quality services to citizens that we cannot just hide behind a single point of contact. So that's why we frame this idea of moving from the end user to the whole human network that it's necessary to deliver it. So in our specific case, of course, there is the citizen with its own touch point, to whom we need to deliver services that require civil servants. And those civil servants are each one in a single different local public administration. We have more than 5,000 small municipalities in which most likely the mayor is also the dentist of the village, just to give you the sense of the taste. And actually, their ICT system are built and maintained by third-party suppliers that are private, and the fragmentation can become very, very complex. So far, what we learned is that we need to influence and shift the perspective of the whole network of this series of actors. And in order to do that, we cannot build on generic design tools, but we need to customize specifically for each and every of this actor. So what we are currently in the process of doing is to basically reframe the offer and actually expand the offer based on an influence model that it's we're not inventing anything. It's literature based. So we'll try to cover the whole spectrum of not just on the coercive side, which is what usually government are pretty good at. It's where law fits, but also, and not just on the seductive side, which is the tendency of designers. You try to do things as attractive as possible for the end user and not for the best, but also on the size and the persuasive corner. So getting practical, what we're currently helping out building, it's the update of guidelines for service design for the public administration, which is it's trying to refer as directly as possible as Designers Italia and the tools that it's providing. And that is mainly for administrator, for them to get a sense of their requirement and to build on what Marine was saying, not just about accessibility, but also connecting privacy and the quality overall of the services. And then the feedback we got from those administrators was that it's interesting for them to be guided by law about what they can do and what they can't do, or what they should or should not do. But then they need practical guidelines for them to execute and their operators to execute in their projects. So that's why we try to flank the regulatory side with practical guidelines, sort of how to, that put administrator that can help administrator talk to civil servant within their local entities to make sure that they execute based on what the law requires. And then moving to the left, we create methodological tools, for example, how to build an ecosystem map, how to do an information architecture frame, how to run a user test that put the civil servant in the condition of being able to talk to supplier and require them proper implementation according to the guideline. And then, of course, this box here, these two boxes basically are what we can refer to as the design system, that it's made both of technological kits for developer. It's made it's currently under renovation, the whole user interface kit for designers, as well as we're building templates for those local authorities that are large in number, such as municipalities and schools, that delivers a lot of services usually, and that usually don't have neither the time nor the money to implement proper user research processes while sharing the same issues. So while we cannot mandate the use of the template, we're trying to make it as easy as possible for municipality to follow templates and implement them as they are. And again, back to the topic of measurement, and I want to close it here, but I would love to discuss even more with your team, as we are trying to face the very same thing while we try to scale up the deployment of such templates over 8,000 municipalities and 8,000 schools, which is what we targeted as a recovery fund goal. And for that, we are trying to automatize the process of measuring some kind of indicators of quality, whether it would be the implementation of the library, the accessibility, the security protocols, and first level architecture, second level architecture, and so on and so forth. So I would leave it here. Conclusion: known territory for us in our setting. Of course, this is all specific to our setting, and feel free to say it wouldn't work on other occasion. The end user citizen focus and user-centered design tool are necessary, but are not enough to succeed in the digital transformation of public administration. Like, we need to use PA as users, as enablers, and as multipliers. Because government to government to citizen setting, the one where we are now, in Italy, requires a human-centered approach. And then in our context, the tailoring of generic tools specifically for PA setting has proven necessary actually to kickstart this digitalization process. And then open question, but Martin, feel free to defer the answer to a different setting. Is we're really trying to understand how might we orchestrate organically an ever-increasing multi-stakeholder national design system. So we're building libraries, we're building toolkits, we're building everything, and also the development workflow, trying to put back to the center at disposal branches that are relevant. But when the scale gets 8,000 local authorities just for municipality times 2 supplier each, it becomes just an effort that we don't know really how to cope in management. And that's it.
Cool. That's really impressive, and it's even more impressive given the size of the team you have. So I think the richness of resources and different tools that you're providing. On the different templates that you're providing for municipalities, like how does that work? Because I think you had on your slide was like 22.
Can show you more detail.
Oh yeah.
So from the technological tool, I mean, whoever wants to implement anything can look at the interface design toolkit and prototype, and they have their library to do implementation and interface development. But there also are a set of pre-assembled municipality templates that we're considering also branching. So there's branching for different sizes and school templates that are currently set as follows. So for municipality, we do have HTML, and then the community provided a WordPress CMS template, a Drupal CMS template that put back into the open source catalog for other municipalities to reuse. We're currently working on the standardization of services, which is not yet there. So everything beyond login on the local authority was not mapped. So that's where our core focus is as of now, together with libraries. And that's the approach we took for municipality, because they usually have more time, more money, and more legal requirement to deliver services on digital tools. Whereas on schools, which usually have lower budget, lower staff, lower capability, the idea back then was to go straight into WordPress CMS templating. So that's, I mean, even with very little time, very little resources, anyone could implement the solution.
Wow, that's really impressive. How much support do you give then? Because I can imagine like people are trying to, they maybe have like a local supplier helping them to set it up and use these templates, but then they might have, I don't know, a customization question or so. How much are you able to support that? Because I can imagine that keeps you quite busy if you do give support.
That's a very good question. So far, most of the customization of the HTML, I'm talking municipality, has been done by the suppliers that are implementing the customization of the template. But then for both municipalities and schools, we do have active a Slack community where people could post their questions, and they usually have it answered there, either by us or by somebody else in the community. But right now, with the deployment, this vast deployment of investments with the recovery fund, we are considering the option of having more regular maintenance at the center to make sure that whoever gets to CMS templating can have something that's safe, reliable, stable, at least for the whole 5 years of the recovery fund, so till 2026.
Wow. Great. I think there are two related questions from Ignacia and also Tabea. One is like, what's usually the capability that you see when it comes to design and technology in local authorities and municipalities, like, and their capability to use those templates? And then also like, what's the response from the municipalities? How much are they seeing the value in what you're providing?
Tough question. I think diversity is the keyword here. So in terms of capabilities, we really range from municipalities like Milan that have their own interoperability standards set before the national ones and operated before the national ones with huge investment on technology, as well as municipality of 1,000 inhabitants that usually operates on anything technology-wise in group of different municipalities to make sure they get the critical mass to get deals with suppliers. So and innovation can also happen at the periphery. So we have, for example, one of the I would say that the most innovative supplier being born in one of these local, small, but rich in inventive groups of municipalities that wanted to do things, from scratch properly with good tools, following all the guidelines, all the interoperability standard, all trying to get all the goals set by Europe in terms of service delivery and so on and so forth. So it's really diverse, and there are good surprises where we wouldn't expect it. In terms of tech capability, same. So you might happen to talk to somebody like a local entrepreneur who took as a mission to turn his small village into something different and more digitalized and more contemporary, down to the level of really the dentist of the village that also took charge of the digitalization of the municipality with the formal title. So it's really diverse. That's the challenge that we have. And in terms of the reception, I think that it was really interesting when we put into consultation, into public consultation, the new guidelines for the design of services and websites. The local authorities replied to us, "We're really happy to be more regulated if you show us how can we meet those requirements practically." And that, at least to me, was a surprise. And in terms of seeing the value, I don't know if I answered, but I think there is value for public administrators to show step up and matching goals, and it will be even more true with recovery fund deployment. So if a municipality can show its citizen that he met the requirements, therefore got financed to implement a new website or a new section of the website or different services on their website, then there will be also like a political coin that they could spend on the political arena.
Cool. Great. Next question comes from Deborah straight away here. Can you tell us a bit more about the templates you have in place? I'd be interested in hearing how people have reacted to them.
Sure. So in terms of the templates, maybe I can also show you as we speak, but they're both being born out of design research, trying to practice what we preach. They've been born out of design research. Some it's done internally, some of them have been externalized to design firms. You have, I'm sorry for this being in Italian, basically you have a section saying what is this about, how to use it, how it works, and what it contains. So you have links to documentations and stuff like that. And then you can go like basically straight to templates where you have HTML coded on a like a dummy website where you have information about the administration, the news, which was really important for policymakers to make sure they have a place where they can advertise what they're doing into the website, services. which of course we're trying to standardize as much as possible in cards that have always the same structure and make sure that it contains all the necessary information for citizens before they actually access the service itself. And then documents and data, which is anything required by law to be public. And then on the right here, you see a list of topics which access tag. So basically what they do is, since the research show the fact that many municipalities have thematic website, for example, tourism dot name of the municipality dot something else, and I don't know, the park, which is under the responsibility of the municipality, was mentioned into a different website. We organize this in tags so that the single tag, I mean, can contain a series of different information that belong to the same semantic area. And more or less the same works for schools. So you have the same kind of presentation. And I mean, here the key difference is that you have also like a ready-made WordPress theme that you can, you know, download and use with the documentation and where you can find support on Slack. Yeah, that's really it. And I mean, we cannot we cannot share too much because whatever will be into the tender of the recovery fund, of course, it's a bit risky to share, but we're definitely working on implementing like multiple versions and multiple CMS for the municipality template and the school template. And we're working very hard to standardize services that different local authorities are erogating in different shapes or forms into like fixed steps that have like fixed blocks of UX, so that at least for a batch of the most used local services, they can be standardized and finance actually the standardization of those services by the recovery fund. But it's a bit tricky because the definition of done, it's while accessibility is super clear because the law says when you're done and when you're not done yet. Design quality of informative site, it's already subject to discussion. And then when it gets to services, it's really difficult because the quality of services, like a well-designed service, I mean, you can understand if it's properly done or not just after you've measured it. And if you want to sponsor and finance actually the implementation of something, then you have to know upfront, right after it's done, if it's compliant or not. So we're in a bit of a tricky situation of defining when a service is properly done.
Great. Thanks for showing this. This is really impressive to see. Another comment from Deborah. It seems a universal challenge for all of us to get standardization and consistency. Yeah, totally. But I think it's amazing to see all these different approaches, and this is particularly what I love about these calls and this community exchange, like seeing what kind of like different recipes and what kind of like different responses have to very similar challenges. And I think there's a lot we can learn and kind of like almost like steal from each other in the best possible sense. One question that I have is like you've been focusing quite a bit already on kind of like, of course, citizen facing things, but also by utilizing existing open source CMS systems like WordPress. How much have you been starting to look as well into case working systems? So things that are entirely internal facing, where there's probably a need as well. So that this is something that we have seen and more and more being discussed in the UK government, where certain departments said like, well, most of the things that we need to do once kind of like the citizen facing front is sorted, look at like how do we make the internal facing tools better as well, because caseworkers might spent a lot of time looking at like really like old fashioned databases and doing this on kind of like stationary computers and being very inflexible. Have you ever been you started looking into that as well, or is it like less of a thing today?
So long story short, we would like to focus on that more. What we're currently doing is basically starting from the end user to get back on the network, so that we make sure that all different pieces are in place as much as we can control. On the technology side, rather than the design side, it's more frames, because I mean, at the level of infrastructure, the department has set a series of guidelines, for example, about cloud infrastructure and how you should go software as a service first, rather than actually implementing your own thing. So that covers infrastructure. Then we're trying to standardize on it's called middleware or platforms, like internal platforms. When it gets to databases, semantic, interoperability, and things like that. And they all have their own like sets of guidelines. So whatever gets done new needs to follow interoperability standards, and which are not just national, actually are international. So on that side, it's easier, but we haven't had any bandwidth actually to start focusing on, let's design the perfect interface for, let's say, the civil servant that is actually implementing those procedures. So that hasn't been done yet. What we've seen happening, though, is that in some cases, when the supplier that needs to push services front facing is forced to use some standards and some library, then the civil servants that are actually paying for that job to be done starts to demand it internally. And I've seen that happening more at the center, I have to say, than at the periphery, but at some point we'll need to measure also that side. And I think that the key efforts, other than maintenance, as you pointed out, would be really actually being able to measure. So Mauro here is actually working on a proof of concept for a crawler that will actually go and dig into website to try to assess data points that can be indicators of quality. Absolutely imperfect, but still at the general level with that scale, it will help assessing what are the priorities, how is actually the market, the local authorities and market behaving, and how can we tackle that.
Excellent. Thank you. If there are no other questions, this is where this call might actually end. And well, I think all of us are on the Slack instance as well, so everybody can ask as well questions later when they come up. As said, we have been recording this call and we will be making this available. I'm just dropping as well the link in here. That's the hidden playlist where we will be adding this call later, either later today or tomorrow. And yeah, as our speakers all requested, we will be making this recording open to the public, which I'm really happy to do. So thanks everyone. We cannot tell you exactly when the next call happens, but you saw our little shortlist. So it depends a bit like how we, Paloma and I, will be able to get speakers sorted, but we will post as well the different topics on the Slack channel in general. In the group general, and you can do a bit of voting. And yeah, thanks again to our speakers. It's fantastic to see the range of activities and how you are able to build design and building design capabilities and all the different articulations of that. So really deeply appreciated. Yeah, I think that's it. Thanks again, and have a good evening.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Bye.